What's up guys, Bigmans here. I've been playing the Battle Cats for quite a while over on my Twitch page, and by quite a while I mean like a little over a year, which is still long enough for me to discuss some of the ways that people cheat in the Battle Cats. Now what I mean by cheating is going against the rules of the stage or the game itself. I'm talking about things like seed tracking, hacking the game to give you infinite cat food or XP, but sometimes people even consider Uber carrying or no clipping to be cheating strategies. Now, while these are all very separate strategies that you can use to beat stages, I think it's important to discuss what exactly cheating is in the Battle Cats. And can we come to a collective agreement in the Battle Cats community about what cheating is? In this video, I want to discuss some of the ways that you're able to go against the rules and the game mechanics that Battle Cats, that Ponos, has set in place, and also discussing how some of these methods compare to each other, whether some of them are truly cheating or if some of them are just ways of getting around the stage, ways of making the stage easier. And if they're not cheating, where do they fall on the scale between cheating and not cheating? I'm going to sort the list by things that I think that we can all agree on are definitely cheating in the Battle Cats. And as the list progresses, I'll start to talk more about things that aren't really clear whether cheating or not. Please know that this is an opinion video, so not all the things that I say are 100% factual. This is just a way for me to give my opinion while taking into consideration some of the things that I've heard from the Battle Cats community. I mean, Battle Cats doesn't really have much network connection, right? Or working with other players, which is a big point that I'll mention later on in the video. A lot of people bring up the argument that it doesn't matter that you cheat in the Battle Cats because it's not really a game where you work together, you're not really competing with each other. So this is something that I'll bring up later on. But let's go ahead and start by talking about hacking. Now, by hacking, I'm referring to deliberately giving yourself infinite XP, infinite cat food, infinite cat eyes, treasure chests, other items, basically any quantity or number in the game, cranking it up as high as you can. I don't know anything about the process behind hacking, but I think that most of us would agree that this is cheating. I mean, this is something I'm going to say. I think that this is cheating, but I also feel confident that a lot of other people would also agree with this. Now, bringing up the argument before, some people will say that because the game is not multiplayer, it's not really cheating. But I disagree with that. I want to use the metric that a method of cheating involves going against the rules of either the level or the game itself. Now, these two things are important to separate because it helps us to figure out whether something is sort of cheating or if it's really cheating. If something is going against the mechanics of the game, for example, let's say going past your cat food limit or ignoring the process of having to grind for tickets or grinding for cat food, grinding for XP, and giving yourself those numbers, I think that this is deliberately cheating because it goes against the process, it goes against the methods of obtaining these things in the game. I mean, hacking in the game and giving yourself infinite cat food is equivalent to getting a money machine and just printing cash. It wasn't something that was produced to be distributed, so it's fake. In the context of the Battle Cats, printing out money is the equivalent of producing cat food that you haven't really obtained. It's like you didn't clock into your 9 to 5 job to go make the money, and you certainly did not start grinding 3 and 4 star stories of legends to get that cat food. So, like, where did it come from then? I think the same thing carries over for XP, cat eyes, for any other quantity or thing that you can get in the game. Even giving yourself units, I think, is cheating because the ways of obtaining those are already set in stone in the game. If you didn't roll for them legitimately, you should not qualify for having obtained it legitimately. This is something that I've talked about with my community, and it's something that most of us agree is definitely cheating in the Battle Cats. But speaking of rolling tickets in the game, here we have seed tracking. Now, seed tracking, for those of you who don't know, and I don't know a lot about seed tracking, but from my understanding of it, it's about manipulating the way that the game randomizes your chances of obtaining certain units. I believe that seed track is a little bit more specific than that, but from my understanding, that's what the main idea of seed tracking is. The interesting thing about seed tracking is that it doesn't guarantee you a specific unit. Rather, it just changes the odds of you getting a certain unit you want. So in a way, it's kind of like upping the chances of you getting certain Ubers or certain other units that you want. I don't know about the specifics of seed tracking, but for me, I think that seed tracking is not cheating. I think that seed tracking manipulates the game in a certain way that makes it slightly less interesting. Not necessarily unfair, because like I said before, this is not a multiplayer game. If you were competing with other people and you were using seed tracking, obviously that's a much bigger problem. But it really is a single player game, and the experience that you choose to have with the game is up to you. And so by choosing to seed track, by giving yourself these units, by increasing the chances, I think that in some cases is justified. I think that if you're way advanced in the game, I'm talking about late ZL, you've been playing for 10 years, but there's only just a few Ubers in the entire game that you need to get, I think it makes sense to want to try to get those Ubers, because once you've gotten that far, it's going to be almost impossible for you to get those few units that you need to get. Now, where I don't agree with seed tracking is when new players decide to use seed tracking. The comparison I always give, and I know that this is a logical fallacy, but if you want to give yourself units in the game, you want to give yourself those Ubers, but remove the surprise, remove the joy of getting lucky and being able to get an Uber. Why not just cheat? Why not just hack? It's a single player game anyway, so why not go out of your way to just hack it? And obviously this is a slippery slope, as I said, but I think that it's something that's worth discussing, because if people want that unit, why not just go and get it? Why do you have to increase the chances or go against some system? Why do you have to type into a spreadsheet in order to figure out everything, to see all your future rolls just for you to get that specific unit? I mean, why not just figure out how to put the unit in the game, right? Or better yet, why not just play Battle Cats Ultimate, where you can literally do anything you want from the start, you know? Now, I do think that seed tracking is worse than Uber carrying, because you're giving yourself more resources, which can then be used for Uber carrying. The biggest problem I have with seed tracking is that it just ruins the joy of gacha in general. I mean, rolling through those rolls, you know, getting those rares and super rares, and finally coming across an Uber or even a legend rare, there's so much joy in that. And that's something that I cherish a lot with my chat, a lot with the game itself, those certain moments. I mean, I've gotten kind of bored of them in a way, to be honest, because I just kind of use the same like 2 Ubers anyway, but it's something that's really important to the game, and by removing that, it's kind of ruining the surprise. I mean, it's like knowing what you're gonna get for your birthday. Like, sure, you enjoy it and you might be looking forward to it, so maybe you have the thought of it coming into your mind, you know, like, you know, you're gonna get it on your birthday, but you don't have it yet, and you know what you're gonna get. So as it gets closer to your birthday, you're like anticipating it. But there's a certain joy, I think, that's kind of removed when it's like not really a surprise, when it's like, oh, I know what I'm gonna get in 3 days, or I know what I'm gonna get in 10 rolls, so let me just keep rolling and get it.
Avocado. Thanks.
Going back to the argument that I've made before about being late in the game, some people argue that this fixes the rare chances or the chance of getting Ubers in the game. Getting Ubers and Legend Rares is not impossible, especially if you're a new player. Any Ubers or Legend Rares that you get are going to help you. In fact, as a new player, it might even be more beneficial for you to get the rares and super rares first before you get an Uber. Also, if you've gone out of your way to seed track, do not boast about getting Ubers. Do not boast about getting Legend Rares or making even progress in the game, because we know you're just getting the Ubers to Uber carry, which is something we'll also talk about later in the video. Now let's talk about one of my favorite forms of cheating, and something that seems to be a more hot debate. While hacking and seed tracking are generally more agreed upon to be forms of cheating in the game, cheesing is kind of a weird medium. Remember before how I mentioned that we should split it up between methods that go against the game itself and the methods of the game and the stage itself? Cheesing is this weird in between where you're going against the stage itself, you're going against the way the stage is presented, but you're not going against the game. So seed tracking and hacking both involve going outside of the game to use third-party methods, third-party tools in order to obtain or do something in the game. Cheesing, on the other hand, is using the materials, using the resources that the game gives you in order to manipulate the stages. Now, there are a few different ways that you can cheese stages, but I'm going to be focusing on the methods that involve permafreezing and clipping. Now, what does cheesing in the Battle Cats look like? Cheesing in the Battle Cats is usually exploiting a certain method or weakness of the enemy or stage. For example, if you see that you're fighting an enemy that is not immune to knockback, not immune to freezing, and you decide to take advantage of that, you are cheesing the stage by exploiting a certain weakness that the enemy has. Permafreezing is all about using combos in order to increase the duration of the enemy's freeze state. For example, stacking, let me think off the top of my head, Fisherman, Bomber Cat, the Weed Whacker guy. I'm really bad with cat names. All of these guys are associated with cheesing because they're able to either perma slow or perma freeze certain CC units, typically rares or super rares, that are easily stackable. Now, something I think is really interesting and worth mentioning about cheesing in this way is that it still involves a lot of strategy. As I said before, you're still going with the method of the game, so you're not going around it, but it does involve a lot of strategy. It involves managing your money right. It involves knowing how to send out your units. It involves understanding combos. Some stages are quite difficult to even set up a cheesing strategy. So I think that considering cheesing as directly cheating is a little bit of a far stretch to make. Cheesing is somewhere in the middle. I think that it leans a little bit more towards cheating on certain stages, but as you'll see, there are other methods that are really farther away from cheating than towards cheating. Now, there is one unit worth mentioning, or maybe two actually, that are unanimous with the idea of cheesing. The first one being Healer, which is a unit that comes from the Merc Storia collab. And his gimmick is that he's able to 100% chance freeze any enemy type. Now, obviously, this is exactly what cheesing is, being able to exploit a lack of anti-freeze that the enemy may have. Healer is able to come in there and he's able to very easily, in most strategies, be able to perma-freeze the enemy. Perma-freezing is, of course, when you freeze the enemy and cycle so quickly that it doesn't give the enemy a chance to attack. There's a strategy used on floor 30 of Heavenly Tower that involves using Healer Cat and Lone Cat and Kitten, CC. Basically, this strategy takes advantage of the fact that the boss for floor 30 does not have an anti-freeze. I am guilty of using this strategy before for floor 30, on floor 30, but then I went back through and completed it the way that you were supposed to without the cheesing strategy. But this strategy represents a pinnacle part of Battle Cats, which is, of course, going against stages the way they're meant to be. There are a lot of stages in SOL and UL that follow a gimmick strategy. For example, stages where there's a low enemy limit, and the idea of the stage is to try and knock back the enemies rather than killing them in order to get to the base. In this way, the game is acknowledging that there are certain strategies to be stages that don't involve directly hitting the stages head on, like you do with so many of the other stages. But what makes this specific healer cheesing strategy so much different is that it doesn't involve those same critical thinking points, and it's not used in stages that deliberately are meant to be tricked in this gimmicky sort of way. Rather, healer can be used in any stages where bosses or even certain enemies lack the anti-freeze ability. Something to consider is that sometimes this specific strategy of cheesing is actually more difficult to set up and complete than just doing the stage normally itself, especially if you have the units that are appropriate for the stage. Therefore, it's not something that you should always go straight for, but if you want to try to get over some stages without having to beat them the normal way, it could be worth considering. Now, how does this compare to seed tracking and hacking? It definitely does not compare. It definitely compares in that it is going against the stage, but it is not going against the game. And I think for this reason, it's not considered cheating. It's considered cheesing.
Boy, if you don't...
Many BattleCat pros will look down on you if you decide to complete stages using this method, and I think that this is rightfully so, but it's definitely worth discussing because, as I mentioned before, BattleCats has many stages that are focused on gimmicks, and they're literally giving you these units. It's as if the game wants you to use these strategies. It wants you to exploit the game using these units. And for that reason, I don't think that it's as much of cheating as hacking and seed tracking, but I do think that there's a little bit of integrity that is lost when you decide to complete stages like this, which is also something that I might mention later on, the integrity that you lose from doing certain strategies. As you know, BattleCats is a very social game. By going against the game, you're kind of damaging your own reputation. If you seed track or hack, you obviously can't boast about having Ubers. And if you cheese a stage, it's hard to boast about having completed it. Another really important topic to mention in the theme of cheating in the BattleCats is, of course, everyone's favorite, Uber carrying. For those of you who don't know, which I don't know how you wouldn't, Uber carrying is when you use a very Uber heavy loadout to get through the stage. Some people would consider 4 or more Ubers to be considered Uber carrying, while for others it's using 5 or more. But generally speaking, Uber carrying is when the focus of your strategy is to get your Ubers out and just let them run through and let them do what they do best, which is destroy everything. I myself, I'm guilty of this. In fact, in my general loadout, I use Awakened Bahamut and Luna. Luna, of course, I really keep her there just for her specialties. For example, being able to freeze aliens, reds, zombies, and relics. And then a Bahamut in there, of course, he's in there to just destroy everything with his damage. The rest of the guys are kind of just there for more general damage, and then, of course, meat shields and whatnot. I myself would not consider my general loadout to be Uber carrying because Ubers, while they are doing a big support, that's exactly what Ubers are for. Ubers are supposed to be supporting the strategy. However, there are certain strategies that people use very regularly that involve using a lot of Ubers, managing your money, and being able to send out Ubers as soon as they're available. Now, Now, while I do think that this is further removed from cheating compared to, say, seed tracking, hacking, or as we just mentioned, cheesing, I think that Uber carrying is really more of an exploit on just the game itself. You're not going against the methods and you're not even going against the stage. Rather, you're taking the stage head on using the resources you have and just pile driving like a juggernaut through the stage. The biggest problem that I have with Uber carrying in general is that it diminishes a lot of the joy you get from the game, but also a lot of the skill that you're able to obtain by using a more specialized strategy. For example, I'm in this weird situation where I've been in UL for a little bit and I'm getting a little bit burnt out because every stage I'm doing feels like I'm going through the exact same. Obviously, there are certain stages where there are certain gimmicks that I have to play with, but for the most part, I'm able to just use my general loadout through the stage, and it's not even Uber carrying. There are many strategies that people are able to use to get through most of the game with just a single loadout. Now, there are some exceptions to Uber carrying. For example, the Wawa's Revenge and Doremi Revenge are exceptions because of their unique conditions, which require you to either have some juiced out normal cats or have a good selection of Ubers. While Uber carrying does make a lot of stages extremely easy, it still involves a little bit of strategy, understanding when to send out your units, understanding how to manage your money to be able to afford the expensive units. Things like this actually make Uber carrying a little bit of a strategy in itself, as opposed to just hacking or seed tracking. Uber carrying is definitely possible with just the base game without having to use any exploits of any kind, but it is not something that everyone does. People only choose to do Uber carrying once they start collecting a large assortment of Ubers. It's a problem that the game has had for a while. Naturally, you're inclined to want to use these Ubers because they look cool, because they deal a lot of damage, because they have a lot of specialties. So if anything, Uber carrying is like the normal way to play the game based on the way that the game is advertised to you, the way that the game is promoted to you. I mean, you get these roles, you get all excited about by getting the Uber rares and legend rares, but you don't really stop to think about how is shaping your perspective of the game. I would say that this is the most popular form of cheating or exploiting in the game. The game basically incentivizes you to want to Uber carry. Now let's go ahead and talk about a strategy that isn't really used as much anymore thanks to leaderships that we're able to collect and use in order to refresh our energy. But if you've been playing Battle Cats for a while, you definitely know about this strategy. And this is energy glitching. This exploit, which involves changing your time zones in order to give yourself some extra energy, has been patched time and time again. Honestly, I think out of all strategies, this one is one of the more respectable ones, even more far removed from cheating compared to Uber carrying. Basically, you just want to play the game. You just want to play the game, and so you're using exploits in order to play more of the game. You're not cheating the stage. You aren't giving yourself free units or infinite resources. You just want to play more of the game. Now, it used to be that you were able to do certain stages as many times as you wanted to, as long as you consistently gave yourself energy. Now, of course, you weren't able to just do these stages as much as you want because there is a maximum amount of energy that you can have. Once leaderships came out, you were able to just play practically nonstop. And so, of course, they had to put a limit on these stages by allowing you to only beat it once or twice. There are a lot of advent stages that happen every month that I get so frustrated by because I'm only able to complete it 3 times in one sitting before I have to wait like 6 hours or something to play it again. It's so annoying because I just want to play the game. The stages are so easy, I could just bulldoze through them, but I can't even do that. So in a way, the energy exploit hasn't really been relevant for a while since they added leaderships and since they made it so certain stages, even if you did have unlimited energy, you still would only be able to do it within a certain time frame. If you're farming treasures and just want more energy to be able to get those treasures, I would overall say that it's better to wait for the treasure festivals in the first place. A sort of honorable mention that I want to talk about. This is basically where right before you're about to lose a stage, you hit the pause button and you close the game. When you open it back up, it'll ask if you want to retry the stage. This way, you're able to get a free replay of the stage without having to spend the energy. I think that this is honestly a pretty valid strategy, as once again, you're not cheating the stage and you aren't exploiting the mechanics of the game in any way. You just want to play more of the game and give yourself another shot. When you're trying to complete a difficult stage and you just need to get a little bit of luck, a little bit of timing, and you just need to retry the stage without blowing all your energy. This exploit doesn't really change anything in terms of strategy or skill. It just gives you another chance to attempt the stage. I would definitely say that this is not cheating. I would say that the restart exploit is one of the farthest strategies that I've mentioned from cheating, because similarly to the energy glitching, you're just giving yourself more chances. You're able to play the game a little bit more. Some people might say that restarting the stage is a little bit more cheating because you're giving yourself a full another attempt and you're not even spending the energy. While on the other hand, energy glitching is at least following the rules of the energy system for the game. But either way, both of these strategies are very far away from hacking and seed tracking, which I would say are definitely forms of cheating. One more strategy that I want to mention, and something that was brought to my attention by one of my good friends, is the no clipping or clipping strategy. But basically what it is allowing a very fast unit, usually Awakened Bahamut, to be able to get behind the main boss or main enemy of a stage. I've also seen him use this strategy with Train Cat, although this guy's like absolutely cracked at the game, so he can pretty much do whatever he wants. I would say that this is the least exploitive strategy because of just how difficult it is. I mean, if you are able to get it, then of course it could be very good for you. But it's so difficult to even get in the first place that I think for me and most other players, it's easier to just Uber carry or to go through the stage the way that it was meant to be completed. Tavi, on the other hand, is a very big fan of no gacha. And what's that other thing called? I forgot what it's called, but it's when you play the game only by whatever updates come out at the time of the stage that you're doing. It's a very difficult way to play the game along with no gacha. Absolutely insane trying to do both. It does a lot of stuff like that. This particular method involves so much skill and strategy that I don't even think it's fair to compare it to cheating. I mean, this is the equivalent of like saying that if LeBron James dunks a basketball, he's cheating because he's going over the hoop or something like that. It's way more difficult to execute than your average cheese strategy. And that doesn't mean that it's impossible though. I mean, he's done this plenty of times. And if you become consistent at getting it, I think that you deserve to do it. Going back to the categories I mentioned before, you're going against the way of completing the stage, but you're doing it in a way that it is very unique. It's not necessarily exploiting a specific attribute of the enemy, but rather exploiting the way that the game is set up so that enemies get knocked back after taking a certain amount of damage. Basically, clipping is when you take a fast unit, such as Bullet Train or Awakened Bahamut, and you basically time it with when the enemy gets knocked back so that the very fast unit is able to go through the enemy onto the other side of them, usually going towards the base. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. If you found this video interesting or engaging, please leave a comment below, leave a like on the video, and I'll be sure to read your comments. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there are any more methods of cheating in the Battle Cats that you want me to talk about or you want to let me know about, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond. If there are any inaccuracies with this video, please also let me know about that. And I'll be sure to put a pinned comment with any corrections that need to be made. Overall, like I said, this is an opinionated video, so not everything that I say should be taken as objective, but it was fun making this video. And it was fun putting some creative thought into a lot of these different things that I get talked about in the Battle Cats community. And please be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next one. Go ahead and check me out over on twitch.tv/bigmints4182. Take care, everyone. And I'll see you all soon. Ciao.